Welcome everyone to the Friday night hypnosis discussion group. My name is David Barron, also known as the Italian Jones. What I wanted to talk about tonight is some things that I have discovered recently. And those of you who are active in the hypnosis industry and have clients, you might have noticed this as well. This has only happened, the light bulb went over my head only fairly recently. And that particular realization is that while I like hypnotizing people and it's fun, just as much work in some ways, additional work by doing what is simply called coaching. And for me, what that is talking to them before the hypnosis session and telling them, as you know, with whatever authority I have, what I want them to look at, what they want to measure in their life, and the changes that they want to sort of consider making. The most recent thing that I have discovered is something that I discovered simply because I started to implement it in myself. And it comes down to two qualities. And the qualities, I call them, are the metaphor of the mind and enjoyment. The metaphor of the mind is very simple. I ask my client, and I'd like to ask each of you to consider, whatever environment you're in that you have control over. This could be your office, your desk, it could be your car, it could be your home, it could be your bedroom. Whatever that environment is a representation of your mind. Now, some people, and they immediately become offended because they think of their house and it's a chaotic mess. Something out that don't be offended. There's a reason I'm bringing it up, and the reason is if you accept the metaphor that what your environment is like is somewhat like the inside of your mind, it means that as you start to improve and change and organize your environment, you'll start to notice things inside your head changing. The typical story is, if you can imagine, say, if when we were dating and going off to some sort of party or something like that, we would dress up in our cleanest suits and we'd put our smell good and put our deodorant on and wear our best clothes. And we would show up acting as though we had our stuff together. Back at our home, there's a pile of laundry that is certainly indicating that our life is not together. Our sink is piled up with dishes and cobwebs are hanging from the corners of every room. That is us putting on a face, acting as though we have our stuff together. And the truth is, it's not. And that starts to leak out. It leaks out unconsciously, and people subtly notice it. I tell a story of someone I knew. It was a couple I worked with. I worked their in-laws purchased a company, and they hired this couple as part of the company. I worked adjacently to this couple. And they seemed fun for the most part and seemed as though they had their stuff together. And they invited me over to their house. And the moment the door opened, my nose was assaulted by dog feces. And I almost had to really buffer myself to step in and do, you be courteous. And their house was a mess. Their typical way of choosing clothes in the morning, I later found out, was they would be walking on 1 or 2 inches of clothes on their bedroom floor, and they'd pick it up and smell whatever shirt doesn't stink the most and wear that. And as part of this company, I was asked to go do an errand and pick up their laundry. And what they did is they ran out of clothes that didn't stink, and they shipped them off to a laundromat. And what I ended up picking up were bales of folded clothes. Weighed must have weighed 100 pounds of just clothes that were baled up, folded appropriately, and I loaded them in my car and handed them off to them. So I want you to consider, is that someone you would look up to with respect and ease if you knew that was how they lived their life? Is that someone who you would consider giving responsibility if they can't clean their own house? Well, I mean, they apparently were able to do a job for their in-laws sufficiently that it worked. But would you choose someone who you knew had their stuff together, that their house was in order? Would it be an easier decision for them? And my thought is, if that were a tool to measure things by, yes, you would. Likewise, if you can consider people who if you've gone into their house and for whatever reason, it may be a big house or a small house, but it seemed to be just very well put together. It was organized, it was clean. It doesn't mean things were new, but it looked like it had a space to it. And the space was filled in a way that seemed organized. If you can consider that, what you would notice is that sense of organization represents the inside of their mind. That's the metaphor. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to live in a minimalist environment. Minimalism is a wonderful philosophy, but it doesn't suit everybody. I can think of some people I've known who are incredibly creative. They're artists, as a matter of fact. And if you've ever stepped in an artist studio, it's filled with creativity. I imagine stepping into Leonardo da Vinci's studio and seeing just with awe and wonder all the things that are there sort of manifesting from his mind. So what you have to ask yourself if you're going to do this is, what are the qualities that I want to most demonstrate in my life? Now, these will be behaviors, these will be values that make decisions. And just ask yourself, how can I best demonstrate these qualities by changing my environment? And you'll find it's not a one-shot experience. You don't do it and it's fixed. It's just something ongoing. There's a second quality besides this sense of discipline, which is enjoyment, that I want you to think about. And discipline, I use the definition of discipline is as making decisions in the present to benefit your future self. So with that understanding, what I find, and I wish I would have discovered this earlier in my life, what I find it when I'm in my kitchen, and it's not a big kitchen that I have, it's a very useful kitchen. What I find is that when I'm in my kitchen, I have a towel and a spray bottle, and if I find a thing that's there to clean up, I spray it up. I spray on it and I wipe it up. And the towel gets dirty enough, I throw it into the laundry. What that does is every time I do that, I feel like I've cleared something in my head. I've organized something in my mind. And so discipline happens slowly and over time. And what I found is that for me personally, I may not have time to clean because I'm on a schedule, or I may not even have the energy because I could be physically tired when I notice something needs to be picked up. but I have this sense of excitement of, okay, that's the next thing I'm going to clean up. And it doesn't take it more than a minute to clean it up the way that I want to clean it up. So this is the instruction that I give people. And hello, Alex. It's a pleasure. Welcome. And
Thank you.
What I'm doing here is prefacing that and making sure they really understand the sense of the metaphor, that their environment is a reflection of their internal mind. And the more they start to align their environment with what's happening inside their head, the better they feel more in control. They feel that they are doing something for their future self. And when they get to look at what they've done, they feel grateful that they've done it. So this is the central point of this particular session tonight. So what I want each of you to consider doing is think of what you can do in your environment to make it align with how you want your mind to be organized. So with that in mind, consider everything. What would you be doing? And I'm going to open this up, and Mark, Fred, Dwayne, Alex, Graham,
It
raise a
actually
hand.
reminds me of a story, actually, David.
Yes.
You were saying earlier about creative types and artists and folk like that. There's a story that when after Andy Warhol died, they went around to his like private apartment to do the usual breathing things like getting all the stuff together, and those expecting to walk into an apartment with loads of modern art, pop art sort of thing, all sorts of like groovy, trendy furniture.
Mm-hmm.
And his private apartment was actually filled with, traditional type furniture, like, tables and dining chairs and stuff like that, and sofas. And they said they said it was just like walking into an English drawing room. And I was expecting, okay, is this the guy who did like the Campbell soup and all that sort of thing and had all this like, groovy stuff and things like that? And so it was
Mm-hmm.
just such a shock to actually realize that he had this public persona of what people conceptualize him as. And he had this private space where he could like just literally step out of it and enjoy something traditional in his own relaxing area.
I think that's a really good example of someone who's able to compartmentalize their
Mm.
internal environments into one is their living environment and when their creating environment. Because I would imagine he did have a studio where he did all of that
Oh
stuff.
yeah, it's his famous. I think it was Studio. Was it 54 or 51? Yeah, Studio 51. I'm thinking of Car 54. Where are you?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and
Uh,
that's they spent a lot of time, and that was full of all like the Art Deco stuff
right.
and the modern furniture. But his own actual private apartment that nobody ever went to, that was his, was full of like traditional Middle America traditional.
Mm-hmm.
You think it's a drawing room that I've just walked into in some house somewhere.
And when you get an
Mm.
opportunity, there's a when you get an opportunity to watch people in their home environment, just imagine, okay, their their thoughts and their mind.
Mm.
I remember someone described to me they have Sigmund Freud's desk pretty much enshrined the way he left it. And it was filled, Sigmund Freud was an atheist, but it was filled with little icons and deities of gods in various cultures.
Mm.
And so that somehow represents the things that fascinated him most in his mind. Um, and there's a British artist. She's a singer. Uh, her group, her name is Florence, and her group is Florence and the Machine. I once saw them going to her apartment, and it was an icon of creativity. There were colorful things laid out all over, messy. It was just really creative. So it makes me sort of consider how architects see themselves as, they often see themselves incredibly as if they're doing something great because they're building huge environments that they hope are designed to shape the people that live in them. And there's a movie called The Brutalist where you see this ego of this architect demonstrated as he interacts with people. So does anyone else have any observation or question about their environment and getting their life together and demonstrating this sense of discipline? Thank you, Graham. I appreciate your insight.
First thought on
Good.
my part from my environment.
Yeah. Yes.
Torch it.
Torch it. Well, if you were to look at, again, we can't see your environment. If you were to look at your environment, this is the inside of my mind. How would you describe that sort of?
I'm INTP on the MBTI system.
Yeah.
I'm
what is
very comfortable in disorganization.
Okay.
Too comfortable, perhaps.
Okay. Does the idea of organizing it so it's less disorganized feel comfortable for you?
Somewhat, but not entirely.
Okay. The secret that I learned, because I faced that same sort of doubt. I didn't want to put effort into doing something I didn't want to do, which is cleaning. And I completely understand that as a first response. What I realized is changing it to organizing my mind, using that particular metaphor, made the efforts of cleaning just incredibly enjoyable. So, and I didn't have to do a perfect job. That's the most important thing I think to understand. You don't have to do it perfectly. You just do one thing and you enjoy the results of it. And then you find something else to do and you clean it up and you do you enjoy the results of that. And you do that with the time that you have and you set back and you ask yourself, do I feel better? And when I shared this with my client, he noticed he felt significantly better. So it's worth considering. So consider that and let us know how that works for you, Dwayne. Thank you.
Will do.
All right. Anyone else have any observations, questions?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just actually, like, after distracted down Andy Warhol's living arrangement. So
Yeah.
thinking about where I live, and if you used to look at it, you think, my God, this is just so much clutter everywhere and things like that. But if someone's to say, have you got this? I'll know exactly where to find it. I'll say you find it on there, and there. Because I always put something down and I always put it in the same place. So I know where my wallet is. It's this place. I know where my phone is, which phone, and things like that. I know exactly what is on which shelf, which bookshelf is on which DVDs. Well, not so much which DVDs, but where the DVDs are. So that, funny enough, 2 years ago, when I was in hospital, when my colleague came round to get some stuff, I'd be saying to him, I said, right, George, says, right, if you go into the bedroom, if you look to the left, you've got a set of three chests of drawers. If you go into the second drawer down on the right hand side, you'll find four pairs of shorts. And he was at it. When he came into hospital, he says, like, you could just, how do you do that? I said, it's easy. I said, I always have the same thing in the same place. It's called routine. I said, it's probably a hangover from military days where you always pack your kit out the same so that if you have to grab it off somebody else, you know where to go to straight away. So if you need to grab, say, like a morphine pen off them, off the front of the body armor, you know that you'll reach down to the bottom left corner of it and you'll find in the dark and you will grab a morphine injector.
Right. Yeah. No, the organization is also part of that. So, Alex, you raise your hand.
Well, I've always had an idea in mind what I would do, excuse me, if I had a substantial windfall of cash enough to set up a separate office apart from where I live, so that I go to work and then I do my thing, as it were, as a consultant hypnotist, that sort of thing. The image in mind is that I'd set aside a room for healing, and it would have the feel of entering a temple. I put drapes of practically everywhere, except of course for a window, because I'd want a view that people could actually see out of, and a chaise longue or recliner, something like that, for the patients to lounge on, and then of course my own seat, which and I know that the specific type of seat that I love to sit on is called a posture chair. And it's one of those that's like this sort of a thing where you sit and your knees sort of wrap around. So it's not like a traditional seat where you're sat with your legs horizontal. You actually are in a half kneeling position, that sort of thing. And
Yes.
and I've long had the idea and the desire to sort of separate the parts where the patient goes from more private office areas where you do paperwork and stuff like that, with some sort of a curtain, and and to keep the temple motif, the excuse me, drapes and cushions to rest on would carry little sort of mystical designs, stars, moons, planets, that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
that was my idea. And of course, I love the idea of having efficient shelving so that the walls of the office area would have loads of drawers and stuff like that, a bit like Gray's idea there, although I will stop short of morphine. I do not want to put off the patient.
Yeah. No, that's
Here we go.
Just out of curiosity, Alex, what would you be wearing when your patient's in your healing temple? Would you be wearing something, without sounding a bit thing like something Harry Potterish wizard sort of thing, like a gown or a velvety thing, or would you be like in business dress?
No, I think standard business dress. I think that would be a good idea. I mean, a person could come in with their street clothes and they could sort of be there, as it were. Maybe a coat room for each patient so that they could actually hang their coats and hats up and that sort of stuff. So it's just that the decor would be somewhat mystical, and it would sort of leave them with the impression that when I'm not actually dealing with someone off the street or on an appointment, that I'm putting robes on somewhere and I'm going to be sitting out there with some chanting or something like that, and I'd be zoning out doing my own meditation, as it were. Give them the impression that I'm taking my own medicine. But if it was a matter that I was dealing with someone on an appointment basis, it would be strict business attire for myself.
Yeah,
I don't want to put
let me comment
off.
on that.
I don't
As
like
far
the
as
idea.
what I always recommend, if someone said, how should I dress as a hypnotist? My recommendation is think of the hypnotist you want to represent and dress that way. For me, it's all black, just because my mentor, Jeff Stevens, dressed in black, and he said, the only thing they can look at is your face. And so, but some people put on a business suit. Some people want to put on something that looks like a doctor's schmuck.
Scrubs, yeah.
Yeah, scrubs. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or observation? I wanted to bring one last point in here. When you're trying to clear up your environment and you're in a relationship with somebody who also shares that environment, there can be a friction. And this is something I became aware of. And then I realized it's not up to my partner to make my environment up to my standards. It's up to me. And I would love it if my partner and I were on the same frequency, but it doesn't matter really. It's the enjoyment I get of cleaning it up that makes it happen. And so I don't need another person involved. I can that's a dynamic that can change from person to person, but it's a realization I had from part of this. All right. Any other questions, observations, anything else?
Actually, one that's just occurred to us, David, as you said, like the idea with coaching for like, for the environment, which do you think should take the lead, or would you just play that by client? So if you've got a client who's got a very well organized inside your home, but the thinking's all over the place and they're not really focused, or which would you work on first to say, like, focus on your home, or would you follow the advice of, I think it's Admiral William McRaven, who says, like, make your bed in the morning, so that if you have a really crappy day, you've got a nice bed to go to at the end of it, sort of thing.
Well, I would deal with that largely on a person basis. If someone comes to me to quit smoking and they came to a hypnotist to quit smoking, then that's what I would hypnotize them to quit smoking. If someone came to me because their life is in chaos and they're suffering from anxiety and they don't know what to do, that's entirely different. I want them to start gaining a sense of control in their world. And so that advice I would apply. First, I would talk to them about it and get an idea of what their life and environment is like, and then recommend they consider this. Then I do the hypnosis, deal with the anxiety, probably reinforce the metaphor of, what you do is a representation of the inside of your head. Start doing kind things to your environment and notice how it feels. And I would link that into hypnosis as well. So again, it would depend. If someone just wants to quit biting their nails, I would just hypnotize them usually and not worry about the coaching part of it. That's how I would work. But coaching provides another sort of avenue of income and helping other people. So it's something worthy of considering. All right. Anyone else? Okay. We will meet again next week. Because you're here, you're not somewhere else. And I deeply appreciate the sacrifice you made to get here. If you have questions, please reach out to me through email or through one of my websites, and we will go from there, or through YouTube, and we'll go from there. Guys, thank you so very much. It's great working with you.
Thank you. Before you go,
David,
I'd like to. Sorry.
Yes, Alex.
Before you go, I'd like to apologize for missing out entirely on last week. It could not be helped, and it was the start of a fraught week for me. Last 10 days have been mayhem since October the 1st. So sorry about that. And again, sorry for getting on here late, because Zoom just was not having anything. It was like trying to force me to go onto the app or something. I don't know.
All right.
I'm so sorry about this.
All forgiven. I'm glad you're here. Graham?
Glad you could make it anyway, Alex. And thank you, David, for taking the time to prepare these sessions. They're really appreciated with the ideas that you come up with that help us all. Thank you.
Thank you guys
Second
so much.
that.
Please take care. All
Thanks
right.
again, David.
Thanks, Dwayne.
All right.
All right. Bye.